Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, I'm receiving Greg Zackowicz. He's an e-commerce entrepreneur. He's been in the e-commerce for the last 15 years. He is a marketing expert. He runs a podcast. Actually, he had two in the past. He gives some conferences. That's where I met actually Greg in Quebec City when we were at the Journée e-commerce in 2019. Um, we exchanged a lot during the podcast about few subjects such as email marketing, SMS marketing. We talked about push notification. So all the things you're always ask yourself about. So automation campaign, how you can improve your cart abandonment, segmentation, and performance. That's going to be answered in that podcast. Greg has been with Oracle Bronto for over 8 years, and now he joined recently, 1 year and a half ago, I think, the Omnisend team. Um, he's now at Omnisend, as I said. Just to give you a little background about the company, yesterday Omnisend ranked as one of the Europe fastest growing company by Financial Times, with a compound annual growth rate of 146%. Congrats for this, Omnisend team. Omnisend has been has more than three times the number of review on Shopify than other popular solutions. So I think it's a trusted solution right now, and we're going to be talking about it in the future of this session. So stay tuned. The podcast starts right now, and don't forget to subscribe on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, every channel, and also on Spotify. Thank you so much for being with us today, and enjoy this podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome on the Commerce Show. Today, I'm receiving Greg Zackowicz from Omnisend. Hello, Greg.
Philip, how are you, man?
I'm doing very great, very great. Thank you so much for being with me today. So, as I said earlier in the intro, you're an e-commerce entrepreneur. You had a lot of experience over 15 years. Um, I saw that you have various experience in the past. You went from an e-commerce entrepreneur to a podcaster to speaker. Also, that's actually where we met. In
Yep.
like two years ago, we met at the Journée e-commerce that we're having in Quebec City, and now you're director of content of one of the largest e-commerce email and SMS marketing. And I say "and" because lots of people are talking about email marketing, but lots of those are forgetting about SMS marketing, of the solutions that are out there. Can you tell us a little bit more about you and all your experiences?
Sure. And I'd like to point out that you haven't asked me to be back, so I'm not sure how well that speaking experience has gone, but I had a lot of fun when I was there. So I kid, I kid. So well, thanks for having me on the show. First of all, I love doing this stuff. So this is really good. I'll try to make my experience somewhat brief because I could probably go on and on about different things here. You used entrepreneur. I put that somewhat lightly. So I used to run a gluten-free online store. So right at the beginning of earlier stages of the gluten-free kind of trend in the U.S. and Canada there. So I did that for a couple of years. Good experience. Ultimately, moving to North Carolina to go to work for Bronto kind of ended that for me for a lot of different reasons. But
Yeah, of
um,
course.
you know, it, so your first guest, Philip, was a radio guy. He was an old radio guy, right, on the podcast. So
Yeah,
I'm also an
exactly.
old radio guy, right? Marketing was my fallback career, which is really funny to think about. But I went to
Wow.
school for radio broadcasting, and when I made that transition, I started working, doing some marketing for a radio promotions company, but it was physical, and we had some digital on the side. And I eventually pivoted over to practitioner, working for a digital only company where I was running email marketing programs from there. And I kind of learned the email marketing chops from there. And I did that for several years, ran a couple of verticals, and then had the opportunity to join Bronto about 9 years ago, and I was there for about 8 years in a couple different capacities. And then first capacity there was client consulting, so working with Bronto customers,
Okay.
including some of their larger companies, IR 500, IR 1000 companies, kind of looking at their email program, giving them guidance, strategic advice, actionable step-by-step implementation for that to help them drive revenue through their email program. And eventually SMS came into the fold and started doing the same thing from SMS. So I did that for multiple years over there before transitioning into an analyst role. And the analyst was really taking that marketing knowledge and putting it to practical use, right? So best practices 10 years
Yeah.
ago, are they still relevant? Well, you got to follow the trends on that. Some yes, some
Of
no.
course.
Some no, but people are still doing them. We'll talk about that today.
Yeah,
Uh,
of course. We're gonna talk about trends
it-
for sure.
yeah, and that's kind of how we got to talking because I got into public speaking there. So I was going around the conferences talking about some of these same email marketing things and launched a podcast because of that stuff. And then about a year ago, had the really fortunate experience to be able to come over and join Omnisend, which is where I've been for the last year. And this company is it's just so awesome, right? It reminds me of very early stage of Bronto back when they were cool and hip before they got acquired twice,
Yeah.
and now is being put out to pasture, right? They're taken behind the shed now. So it's great, and the company Omnisend, for those that don't know, you mentioned email, SMS, we do web push notifications as well,
Oh, okay.
but
Wasn't
just a
aware of
slick
that. Yeah, that's cool.
yeah,
Okay.
slick platform. We integrate extremely well with Shopify. So if you are using Shopify and you're in the email, you should take a serious look at us. Uh, not as expensive as Bronto, which is a nice thing. We're kind of an everyman platform, but SMS is rolled into it. Push messages are rolled into it, kind of the whole 9 yards there. So I don't know if that's enough background, but it seems like it's enough background. But feel free to dig into any of that if you'd like.
It is a lot of background, and we're gonna for sure understand more your background. We're gonna talk about all the strategies and the trends that you're knowing. And for the listener that are currently listening to the podcast, I went on the app store of Shopify and I saw like almost 4,000 reviews on the synchronization between Shopify and Omnisend. And just to let you know, also from an outsider like me, in terms of I'm not into an email marketing company, but I see that you are rising very, very fast. I think we see in the market other solutions like Klaviyo and Mailchimp and others, but for the last year, maybe and a half, maybe before you join Omnisend, but I'm hearing a lot of great feedbacks about Omnisend. So, of course, I'm going to be testing the solution very soon because I didn't yet, but I will for sure.
So so we are so we are growing quickly.
Yep.
Give you an idea about the Shopify, right? So
Yep.
we obviously have a big Shopify base there. I have a new employee that started this week, and part of that onboarding is with like, okay, go on Omnisend, sign up for an account, and then integrate, sign up for a Shopify and integrate, right? You can integrate your Shopify store and sync that data coming over to Omnisend in less than 5 minutes, right? It's a one-click integration. That's how easy it is. So
That's
that's why
very
those
cool.
reviews on Shopify, we have so many of them and so many customers use us. But it just puts a little more perspective into like, well, how easy actually is that? It's pretty easy.
Yeah, if you take 5 minutes for one click, it's because you're like, okay, I'm gonna click, and then now you're doing it, and you choose Omnisend because a guy like you having the spotlight with the speaker opportunity that you had with all your podcasts you did. You are well known in the e-commerce industry. To be honest, I heard a lot about you before we met, and you decided to go to Omnisend. So why have you decided to move to a company like Omnisend that is, in my perception, when you joined, that was smaller than a big corp like Oracle Bronto, and now you decided to move to a more startup company? It's not even more a startup, but what made you took that decision?
Yeah, and there's a lot of factors there, and I'll try to boil it down to the biggest one. Well, first of all, like they let me join them, right? That's always step one, right? You got to have the people hire you, which I'm very fortunate. I'm very thankful for that. So, uh, you know, I it's funny. I got into the opportunity by a former Bronto, a guy who had left a couple of years before that I had known, and we had worked together. And he had our VP of partnerships, John. Shout out to John. Uh, he knew they were looking for someone. He's like, well, I know this guy. I don't know if he's open or not. So he just reached out to me one day. He's like, hey, have any interest here? And I'm like, actually, I do. So the more research I started doing on the company, the more I really liked the company. And then I started talking to the people there. So my VP of marketing, and I was talking to our general manager of North America, Jamie, who used to help launch Shopify Plus, and then the owner, co-founder Ritas. The more I talked to them, the more I loved them. Right, I loved everyone here, but you could see what they were doing with the platform. Very slick platform. Things were integrated right. They're not going to nickel and dime you for all sorts of things. It was an easy transition. They were integrating with the right partners. They had the right mindset going in
Yeah.
as a smaller startup company. And I was like, this is, I like the startup feel. At times it gets chaotic, as right? You want to pull your hair out sometimes just because there's a million things going on at any one
Oh
time.
yeah.
But
I
uh,
know what it is.
there's a lot of energy that comes with that. And there's a lot of excitement that comes with that. So I was employee, I don't know, 52, 53 at Omnisend a year ago, and we're over 120 now. I was number
Wow.
5 in North America. We're over 20 in North America now. So it's growing a lot. But we're on that trajectory that we thought we'd be on. And the platform is it's awesome, right? And the entire team, just everyone everywhere is just amazing. And it's the culture you want when you join a company, right? There's nothing worse than going to work and be like, oh, I got to work today, right? We make it fun. People are good. We all have a common goal, and that's a really great place to be in.
And just for a listener, what they can find in the software and the ecosystem of Omnisend right now that they can grow their email and SMS marketing performance. Can you talk a little bit about a few features or the content or the training you're offering to all your clients and maybe your prospects? What do you have
Yeah,
to offer different than and others?
sure. And I'll try to keep it high level without making this a sales pitch.
Mm,
Omnisend.com. If you want more
of course,
information, jump
of
over
course.
there, start digging around, poke around.
Yeah.
I'll hit some of the high level features. So we're going to talk about marketing automation today because it's essential, and we've been hearing about it for years, right? I'm going to tell you why it's even more essential now than it was even a year ago. But pre-built workflows, right? So you can drop and drag and build your workflows. You can do segmentation in there to split your paths and things like that, which is super important. We kind of have this saying that we want to increase your sales, not your workload, right? So we're specifically designed for e-commerce merchants.
Okay.
So we try to make it as easy as possible to use, and we try to help you drive that revenue as quick as possible without making it complex. So from the workflows, right, we'll have these templated workflows you can build. You can certainly customize them from there. You can create your own. But the beauty of the workflows is you can add the other channels directly into the same workflow. So as opposed to saying, oh, here's an email series I'm going to send to someone. Oh, they've also signed up for SMS, so we got to work this in. You could just put those messaging right into the same workflow. So one workflow can work for people on SMS and not on SMS, and you can intermingle those. So uh,
Okay.
that will come really big into play in strategy and next year and this year when we talk about SMS. But you could do the
Yes.
same thing with web push notifications as well, all in the same workflow. Segmentation, sophisticated, super easy to do. You can do as much as you want, drop and drag email builder. So if you think about most people, when you think about email, they'll automatically think about MailChimp, right? It's kind of that de facto platform that people start off with.
Of
You
course.
think about MailChimp, but more targeted for the e-commerce merchant with more features, better reporting,
No monkey.
pop-ups, all those things, right? That's us. So if you use
Yeah.
MailChimp and you're an e-commerce merchant, especially if you're on Shopify because they don't integrate, you should be looking at us, right? So we offer the list growth opportunity. So pop-ups, exit intents, it's all baked in the platform, right? We're not going to say, oh, you want to do cart abandonment, we're going to charge you XYZ, or browse abandonment, XYZ.
Yeah.
It's there. It's there for you to use. So those are some really high things. Omnisend.com, easy way to just figure out what is going to work for you. But
Of
hopefully
course.
that's a high level enough for you.
Yeah, it's eye level, and that's perfect. Of course, for me and our listener, we never want any sales pitch, but it's always good to give a little bit of context of what's the solution you're working on and the reason why you decided to join. It's always good for our listener to be well involved in your experience right now, so they're gonna be able to understand more what are you saying and also the credibility that we can allow to your all you're saying. Let's start with our first topic. We're going to talk about
Yeah, man.
trends in email marketing and SMS. Because you're working for a large platform, you have access to a lot of data. And
Yes.
we know since the beginning of the pandemic, lots of consumer behavior changed. And I'm very interested to know if that you were aware that new trends came out in the marketing and the e-commerce industry over the past, let's say, 12 months, and what have been the impact of the pandemic on the email marketing?
Yeah, there's been a lot, and it's also been trending that way as well.
So we're now entering our first topic, which is the trends in email marketing and SMS. I know you're very aware of all the new trends in email marketing. Uh, can you tell us, over the last 12 months, what has been the impacts of the pandemic on email marketing?
Yeah, so it's funny because the pandemic kind of hit this natural trend we were seeing, and like e-commerce, right? It just accelerated it more than what we were doing. So we've been seeing it grow over the last couple of years. Things like marketing automation, right, where they're accounting those things like cart abandonment, welcome messages, post purchase have been accounting for a sizable portion of companies' e-commerce revenue. It's been that way for years. But when people started having to shop online, obviously the growth of e-commerce as a whole accelerated, but email came right along with it. And there's some really interesting points along with that. So we have these reports that we put out on our website under the resources section. We did quarterly reports last year. We also did a COVID specific one where we looked at like the first stay at home orders announced, and we kind of had this cutoff date. These are all ungated reports, by the way. You don't have to give us any info to get them, so you can just bounce over and read them. But the COVID one's really interesting because you see from a conversion rate standpoint, it's increasing and it's a steady increase. And all of a sudden, right about 3 weeks after that stay at home order, where we really went to lockdown, it shot up and it doubled, right? It was just like this hockey stick that went up. And
Oh,
you
okay.
talk about conversion rates that go from like 3% to 7.5%, seemingly overnight. And really, what we look at is that trend. It never really came back down. We're still at that. I think 2020, out of over 10 billion emails sent, the conversion rate for promotional, so not even automated promotional messages, wound up at 6 point something percent. That's a crazy number.
It is.
What you look at here is, you know, what happened when people started staying home? Well, of course, they started online shopping. What did companies do? Right, they started putting more into digital channels, so paid social, paid search, all these different things here. Well, the problem with paid social, while it's a great channel, uh, is that you don't go there to look at ads. Now, they might catch your attention. They certainly work. They can be very profitable for companies, but that's not why you're going there naturally, right? So something's got to catch it. Same with paid search. You might be searching for something. It all comes with a cost of a kind of a push channel. Email,
Yep.
SMS, push notifications to a lesser degree. They're opt in channels. We talk about, you always hear the term own channels, but opt in channels. Well, if I,
Yes.
it's a consumer saying, yes, I want to get your promotional emails. And what we've seen is that when push came to shove and people were looking for specific products or product discovery, they're getting hit over the head with increased ads, which come with the increased cost to companies. They're going to email. They're checking their email. The beauty of that is when they go to their email, they are already in a shopping mindset, right? They're not going there and be like, "Ooh, let me see what you have to sell buy today or selling today that I have no interest in buying." They're opening because there's interest already built in.
Yep.
That
That's
is why that's why you're seeing the conversion rates go up. Now, here's the thing, right? We've seen click rates go down a little bit. So
oh, okay.
where this makes sense is that the presumption is that it's intent based shopping, right? So open rates have gone up. So we see the open rates go up. So that's an
Yep.
indication that, yeah, opt in, we're checking for it. Now, the click rates are going down, not what I'm looking for. Again, intent based shopping. So I'm not going to click. If I do click, you're more apt to purchase. That's going to naturally bring your conversion rates up a little bit, right?
Of course,
But
it's like when you
the
do some traffic acquisition and you're bringing a lot of traffic on your website, your conversion rate drops down, and that's normal. Okay, I get it. Yeah, it makes sense.
exactly. So we've seen that accelerate, and that is continuing so far this year so far as well. So when you think about this, now we're getting to the point where the recent conversation is Apple, their new iOS 14 update, and they're bickering with Facebook, right? Hey, we're not, we got to let people opt into this, but we're going to make it very clear. Some people will opt in, some people won't. There's always going to be workarounds for it. But what's going to happen is Apple is now aggregating that data for themselves. What are they going to do? They're probably going to be doing some sort of ad thing on their own, right? That's why they're
Yes.
doing it. They're collecting the data and housing in store. Google, I mean, they announced last week, right? They're going to be ending, you know, advertising for directly based on individual users' web activity, right? Website activity. You'll
Mm,
still be grouped. Well, what does that mean for consumers? What does that mean for businesses? Well, for businesses, they're going to be looking at aggregate data. Now Facebook has tons of historical data they can use to target, but ultimately it's probably going to increase your cost of ads because you have to spend more because they're going to be less targeted to make the same. So your ROAS is going to be going down. Email, you don't have that problem. The cost of email is the same. It's an opt-in channel. Same with SMS, right? There's a lot of value there. So if you're not really investing in SMS, or I'm sorry, email right now, SMS, we'll get to that as well. But if you're not
oh
investing in
yes.
email now, it's the time to do it, right?
Oh
Start
yes.
put your money, put your chips on the table and let it ride, because this is going to be something where you want to get ahead of this as much as possible.
And that's something that I say to every clients that we're working with at Novata, is like when they're doing some sales on, let's say, marketplaces such as Amazon or Walmart. We don't own the data, we don't have access to the email of the customer, and that's one of the best piece of value you can get, because you can retarget, yes, of course, with advertising, but you can also send email, you can send the abandoned cart recovery email, and those have a very very high value. And at the end, if you stop all your acquisition channel, if you still have your email list, you're gonna be able to get money out of it, and that's very important. So
Yeah,
so yeah.
and you guys know this in house, right? You deal with this all the time, where you can't just turn off social and be like, all right, let's go all email, right? You have to have all these things work together. That's
Yeah,
you know
it's a
we
mix.
have we have Facebook ad integration into our platform as well, so you can integrate those in workflows. But we recognize there is tons of value in there, right? So if you want to retarget on Facebook, don't stop doing it just because you don't have all the data. But making the other things work for you helps lower your cost there and keep that ROAS high.
Yeah, that's very interesting. And I saw that in the report that 366% more SMS message were sent in Q4 2020. So during, of course, the holiday season, over the same period in 2019. In the same time, we can see in your Q4 2020 report that the conversion rate for SMS campaigns doubled.
Yep.
What do you think caused this surge in usage and performance? And do you think we will see in continuous growth in SMS channel?
Tell you right now, man, if you're not doing SMS this time next year, you're going to be playing catch up, right?
Oh yeah. Oh
It has been growing for the last several years, right? But last year, I think it really hit a tipping point where it's kind of, I always relate to cart abandonment, right? Cart abandonment for a couple years,
it
and
was
this is
new,
going
but
some years ago. It was newer, it was harder to implement, and then became easier and cost effective to implement, and now everyone does it. And then product abandonment or browse abandonment a couple years ago was kind of in that same space, and now it's so much easier to do. More people are doing it. SMS is now like that. It used to be cost prohibitive, not cost prohibitive anymore. Uh, you know, you think about it's like I'm not even going to get into Gen Z and millennials and get these demographic cohorts. Does anyone does anyone not text during the course of any day ever? Right? It's something that's there. This is the way the world is now, right? Text. So again, like email, it's an opt-in channel. Now you mentioned Q4, and there's something really interesting about Q4 here, but it also translates to the entire year. Uh, you know, 2020, almost 400% increase in year over year sends as a whole. So it fits along that Q4 number as well. So it wasn't just a holiday specific thing, lasted the entire year. Conversion rates for the entire year 2020 more than doubled over 2019 as well. So not only is it increasing in adoption, both among retailers and consumers, but consumers are showing a willingness to purchase from there. Now, this is where the Q4 uh, interest or the really fascinating part of Q4 comes in, right? So one of the pushbacks might have always been, well, when push comes to shove and it's the busiest time of year.
I think my camera just went off. Okay, now it's back.
Oh, Philip, okay, I was gonna
Oh,
I
sorry,
stopped talking.
sorry.
I'm gonna keep going. I'm gonna keep going. You disappeared on
No
me
worry,
here.
I just realized
So
I wasn't on the right camera, and I just had to switch. But yeah, go ahead.
very
Let's
good.
continue on that.
This podcast is going. This thing's going off the rails already.
Yeah, it's okay.
So we talk about Q4, right? That pushback has been like, well, when push comes to shove and people are shopping, it's the busiest time of year. Will they respond to SMS? Well, the answer is yes. So what we saw is on Black Friday last year, out of all the orders through Omnisend, so email, push, SMS accounted for 2.5% of all orders on Black Friday.
Oh,
That might not seem like a lot, but it's a lot,
yeah,
right? You,
it
you
is.
talk about you talk about a lot of orders, and if I tell an e-commerce business and I say, well, how would you like to add 2.5% of your sales on Black Friday alone? Do you think anyone would be like, nah, I'm good, right? They're all going to take that.
Oh yeah,
There were more. So there Cyber 10 is this period from the Sunday before Black Friday to the Tuesday through the Tuesday after Cyber Monday. The day after Cyber Monday is one of the busiest shopping days of the entire year. This 10-day span accounted for more sends than the entire Q3 2019. So if you think about that, right, you talk about 3 months in this 10-day span. This just shows you the growth. People are converting here, but it's the same premise. Everyone's doing SMS now. It's an opt-in channel. Unlike email, which we know email gets really busy on these key shopping days, 2, 3, 4 emails a day from a company, right? You don't know when someone's going to be opening them. It might go 6 hours before they open them. They might go 5 minutes, but you have this lack of time sensitivity to it. SMS, you don't get that. Most SMS, study after study will say, are read within 5 minutes of receipt. Right? People are clicking them. You can now use MMS, so you get the images in there. Like this is a channel that is just exploding, and the conversion rates are following suit, and it's not going anywhere. Beauty is you need to find. We talked about very briefly before about integrating SMS and email, making a singular campaign, right? Singular strategy.
yeah.
There is so much you can do, especially from an automated fashion. That we talk about cart abandonment and strategies you could do there, or welcome messages. Like this is just an engagement piece that you know is a tool. Here's the final thing with it. It's not the final, but it's the final thing I'm going to say for now, unless you hit me with some stuff. What happens to that email subscriber after they decide, no, I'm good with emails. I'm going to start unsubscribing from messages. Well, the normal course of business is now we start retargeting them on Facebook and paid search and right different social channels because we know they're actively involved with us. Well, they might opt out of your email. Maybe email just wasn't the channel for them anymore. Maybe they've navigated to SMS messages now. So you still have this lifeline a little bit there to go one way or the other. So SMS is just a huge player now. It is going
Yeah.
to grow only more this year. And I'll say it again, if you're not doing it by this time next year, you are going to be playing catch up. I promise you.
That's insane because in Canada, to be honest, I'm an active e-commerce shopper, and I think in the last year I haven't received any SMS from e-commerce store. Can you imagine? So for our Canadian, e-commerce owners and marketing managers that are listening, I'm expecting like, is there any restrictions or things? I know I'm maybe moving a little bit forward in my questions, but just I'm jumping on it right now. Are there any terms of services or let's say regulations around that in Canada, or it's the same that what we have in the US right now?
So there's the regulations are set by the wireless carriers, right? So we're seeing
Yep.
this thing right now where shared short codes, which you might get a text that says it's from like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And
Yep.
that's the brand text. But you might have multiple brands using that same number because it's coming from the same provider, right? So whoever's giving the SMS. So here in the United States where I am, right, political season rolls around and it's just like text after text from political campaigns. And so, but now we're getting like spam texts from whoever, right, fake FedEx delivery packages and stuff. So
Yeah.
carriers are now going to ban shared short codes. Everyone has to have either a dedicated short code that's only for them or a dedicated 10-digit number, like a regular phone number would.
Of course.
So that ban is going into effect. They just pushed it back, but it's going to effect in June. So it should eliminate the good majority of spam out there. It really comes down to an adoption standpoint.
Yes.
So from a Canada, where obviously you're more, the cities are more kind of not isolated, but like they're more compact, right? You have more space between cities than you might have in the United States here.
Yep.
You've got, say, Toronto, you've got Montreal, Quebec City for you, Vancouver out west, but you kind of have these metropolises. It might just be an adoption standpoint from there. So you're going to catch up, right? Once retailers kind of get privy to this, be like,
Yeah.
I'm on this. It's going to be like a waterfall effect, and you know, a lot of trends you find are anecdotal trends. You just start noticing things, and
Exactly.
so SMS is one of these things. I'm obviously looking at data. I'm signing up for SMS. I always have been because that's part of my job, right?
Of
I
course.
follow these things. My phone is blowing up. It is blowing up these last 6 months. Like Black Friday, I'm like, 30 unread messages, and there's like two from friends, right? And I'm like, oh man. But just like, I must have gotten 5 or 6 today already. It is,
Oh,
you could almost just see it anecdotally, just go off this cliff and be like, all right, here we go. Let's get rolling. So I would anticipate, even if there's low adoption in the Canadian, Canada territory, that it'll revert fairly quickly to the opposite.
but that's a very great opportunity that we can highlight here for Canadian listener that are not sending some SMS. I know a few of our clients are sending some SMS, of course, but I know we're always walking on eggs. We don't want to be too much in terms of time spent between each sendings, and I find it a little bit more intrusive that what we can feel about regular email marketing. So
So I've got a great comment for that there. So what I would do if I'm a business right now is, and you're thinking about, I don't know if SMS is going to work for me, but it intrigues me. Add it to your pop-up, add it to your wherever you're collecting email address, add it. You don't have to promise you're using them. You don't have to send them an SMS right away. What you can do is, if you start collecting it now, one, you're going to get an idea of whether your audience wants it or not, right? Because if no one's signing up, it's maybe you just don't have the demographic, or you don't have the products that the people want to hear from that. If you start
okay,
getting SMS signups, that's your indication that, hey, we might have some legs here, right? Let's get moving with it. So it
that's
doesn't cost you anything to collect the info. Now, here's the flip side. I mentioned very briefly about cost, right? The cost has come down from SMS where it was several years ago. Now, I'll make this quick because, again, I'm not into like selling things. So, Omnisend, right? We offer SMS, obviously. Uh, we, based on what tier you are, we have multiple tiers, including a free platform, a free base as well. But based on what tier you are, we'll also give you free SMS credits based on whatever you pay. So, for instance, say you pay $100 a month to do email marketing. Every month, we give you $100 worth of SMS credits. So,
because there's a cost.
if you're not,
Because there's a cost for you as a platform. You pay each SMS you're sending on the behalf of a customer, right?
absolutely
There's a
right.
unique cost. I have a friend of mine that also run an SMS based company, and I know it's like a quarter of a cent or something like that. It's just pretty small amount, but it's an expense for a company like you, an expense that you don't have to calculate for your email send, because SMS are regulated and you pass through like carriers and providers, things that you don't have in email marketing. It's more software and hard hosting
Yep.
things. But yeah, so most of
Yes.
the people don't realize that you have cost associated to SMS. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'm just gonna say, so we eat that cost up to that credit, right? And then if you want to use more, so let's say, for instance, all right, I'm paying. Let's just use $100, clean number. I'm paying $100 a month to do email. I've got these automations out. Well, every month you're going to get $100 worth of free SMS sends. All right. So if you think about this, all right. So I'm collecting SMS. Not sure I want to use them or not, but now I see there's a little traction. Well, now I can test SMS for free. I don't have to do anything. I could test the SMS out and see what the actual response is, right? And then if I find out that it's really growing fast, I'm getting a great response, I'm getting conversions off it, right? And you want to then spend over $100 that month for SMS, You just pay for whatever you spent over that. But next month, you're going to get another $100 in free credits, right? So it's really a no cost way to get you in the SMS. We do that as a company because we believe, and we've been right, that it's going to be a major player, right? It's going to be a major communication channel. But that's how, if I'm a retailer now or a business now, that's how I start it. Start collecting it. You don't have to use it. You get a pretty good sense whether your customers want it. And then when you're ready to do something with it, you slowly dabble into it and figure out what the return is for you. But easy way to do it. No, there's no risk involved, right? It's simple.
Yeah, but that's interesting to know that you can, with the same software of your e-commerce and email marketing, you can also send some SMS and coordinate some campaigns. So create some interactions on email and create some interactions on the SMS, and try to link each platform and all the initiatives that you're gonna take. Um, do you think, if I get back a little bit in the trend, I know
Yeah.
that you told us that yes, there has been a lot of changes, lots of growth with the SMS campaigns, but do you really think? And I think lots of people are asking themselves that question. Do you really think that all those changes, let's say the surge of the conversion rate and all the habits of the customer that change because of the pandemic, will stay after? And how do you see the future of email marketing? And how do you see the future of the SMS marketing also?
I, it's hard to say, but my guess is that the majority of those trends will continue to hold steady, right? You might not see another, hockey stick shoot up like you saw last time, but if you're already at 6.5% conversion rate for a promotional message, you're doing good. I'm not gonna argue, man. I think anything over 3.5%, you're golden, right? If you're seeing 6, I think you are going to see that continue, because I think what we're doing now is consumers are consumers are used to interacting with email this way. They always have been, but I think it really just reinforced that, hey, I can get more relevant messaging. Now, here's the interesting part, and this is just what we don't know. Like, what's going to happen after, if people do opt out of like sharing the data with Facebook, or like Google's not cutting out of cookies because they don't have a plan B. They already know what they're doing with that, right? They'll
Yes.
be fine. They're making their gazillions of dollars. You know, I don't think companies have to worry so much about that. But I think there's something that's always tried and true about owning your own customer relationship. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. If you own, through an opt-in channel, that relationship, you're better suited to segment. You're better suited to just send a message, even if it's batch and blast, that it's still going to be relevant at a time you choose, that will continue to convert there. Now, if you talk about percentage of, and here's another reason I think it'll last, right? There's been write-offs 8 years ago, 6 years ago. It's like, oh, email is dead, and then it never really died, right? I think it's just getting going,
Yeah,
right?
it was
It
funny.
never went away. It's like a news, right? It's clickbait. It gets people talking about things. It's not dead. It's only getting better. When I worked with clients, I would say, okay, what percentage of your sales or revenue are you doing on automated messages, right? Because if you think about it, it's a really important metric to be following.
Mhm.
If you are too busy to be sending messages, you're maybe a 1 or 2 person company or a 1 or 2 person shop, you don't have time to create 50 segments and create 8 versions of every message, right? It's just not sustainable. So you figure out that percentage of revenue that's coming from automated messages out of your email program, and say, okay, if you can get between 20 and 40%, preferably 30 to 40%, completely on automation, it means you can never send an email again, and you're still driving 40% of your email sales. So you're actually using your batch and blast or your promotional messages, as segment as they may be, to really augment your automation. So I look at this number when I pulled all those metrics out of the system last year, the 10 billion emails and all the automations by type. I looked at it, course of the year, every Omnisend client, what percentage? So 29% of their revenue or their email orders came off automated messages. Total number of sends, 1.8%, right? So less than 2% of your total yearly sends at Omnisend sent drove 29% of the email orders.
Wow.
That has always been true. That was true 8 years ago, right? I used to work with my clients on this all the time. It's still true today. So do we think that trend is going to go down? No, it's been here. So the beauty of automated messages is they're naturally relevant to the consumer. Abandon a cart. It's cart abandonment. I sign up for something. It's welcome. It's relevant. I abandon a product. I abandon a category. Well, I'm window shopping. It's relevant to me. Like there's all these things that really matter to the person, and that's why they're engaging. It's segmentation on an automated scale. So,
It is. Yeah.
my guess is conversion rates this year. It'd be impossible for me to predict a number. If I'm going to go back to this in January 1st next year and look at this, I'm going to guess 6+% for conversion rates for emails, promotional messages, automated messages. You'll probably settle around the 18-20% average. Like I think you're going to see very similar numbers next year. People like email. SMS will probably go up a little bit, my guess. But you're going to have more adoption, which means there's more room to kind of pull numbers one way or the other. But I think you're going to be around similar numbers.
That's very interesting. Of course, we're gonna get together next year to talk about that and just get an update on the reality of the email and the SMS. So I'll already
Watch it.
send you the invitation.
Everything's going to be like 2%. They'll be like, Greg, you don't know what you're talking
yeah.
about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Greg,
But,
sorry about that. Finally, we won't record another podcast. Greg, we were talking previously about all the trends and how we see the things in the future, but let's talk about the present. We all know that cart recovery email is one of the most effective email automation an e-commerce can use. Actually, you can directly see the revenue stream from those abandoned cart feature. And what do you think are the best tweaks or optimization you can suggest to someone? Of course, setting it up first of all, but after things are in place, what can you suggest to our listeners to tweak and always look at in terms of cart abandonment email strategy?
Yeah, there's a couple really simple things you can do. Obviously, cart abandonment, right? The set and forget messages, automated messages. Like you can go back and you can change 50 things about any series of messages to make them more optimized or try different things. I think cart abandonment, there's two very simple things you can do that will probably have a little more bang for the buck or benefit to them. If I start talking fast, I get excited. I talk fast when I get excited. It's great
Yeah,
that
I
email still
love it.
excites me, right? So it's good stuff. With anything you do, like we hear this proverbial customer journey all the time. It's like, oh, customer journey, customer journey. I had this slide when I gave a presentation at a couple years ago for Journey eCommerce. And I had like, oh, here's the customer journey, where it was just a bunch of scribbles on the screen, right? I'm like, that's pretty much what we're at nowadays. It's so hard to pin down a customer journey. I think the way to flip the customer journey is, well, think about what matters to the customer at that particular moment. So cart abandonment is one of these things where, well, why didn't someone abandon? There's so few times now that, and I still get the emails that like, oops, you left something in your cart. I'm like, well, it wasn't a mistake. Like I left it in my cart. It wasn't like there wasn't a technical glitch. So if we think about why
That's
someone
funny.
might abandon something in a cart, right? Most of the time, it's either price. Maybe they're abandoning because they want to ban the cart email with a discount, and they're very possible, right? Nothing wrong with it. I do it. I shouldn't be doing it, but I still do it.
Yeah,
All right.
lots of people do that.
Hey,
Of course, to expect like a 10 off or something like that.
you're guilty of it. I know you are, right? So
Yeah, I am.
you're abandoning those engagement rings right now, and you're like, oh, can I get 10% off, man? That's you know. So so think about it from the consumer standpoint. All right, I'll give you an example. Say you have $50 free shipping on your website. That's your threshold. All right. You have one cart that is abandoned that is maybe $35. You have another that's $350. Well, why did the reason those two people abandoned the shopping cart are probably very, very different, right?
Of course.
350 bucks. What do I need to know? Well, it's a lot of money, right? So maybe I want to know about satisfaction return policies or satisfaction guarantees or something along those lines. That matters to me, so I'm comfortable on my purchase. The $35 probably maybe needs those things. They're good things to know, but what do I want to do as a retailer? What I want to do is I want to get them above 50 bucks to get the free shipping because now there's a value there. I want to increase their average order value, hopefully increase their lifetime value if I can get them back for a second purchase. So what happens is we have this standard message that might go out, which is not a bad thing. Have a message go out. I don't care what it says. Have one. You'll get some sales back, right? That's step one. But so many times like, don't forget free shipping over $50. Well, that's great for the $35 person. Not so much for the 350, right? Yeah, I probably expect that
Of
free
course.
shipping by this point. Small tweaks, right? And you can easily split your automation. Over $50, send them this message with whatever value props you want to put in there. Under $50, send them this, right? So not only your messaging
That's
is
very
different,
interesting.
but your message 2 and 3 can be different. Your discounting strategy can be different. So if you do discount in there, think about it, under $35. Well, I'm going to give you a discount, but I'm going to put a minimum spend on this. $55, spend 55, get 10 off or something, right? And then if they're
Mm.
49.50, they're going to find something to get the free shipping, right? So they might put $5 more in the cart to get the free shipping there. Over the free shipping threshold, right? Maybe I want to discount them a flat dollar figure so I can protect my margin. Like, you have the world. The world is your oyster at this point. But one simple
Yep.
tweak: what's the cart total? Under order a certain amount, I get a different message. Simple,
That's a
right?
very good tweak.
Uh, the other thing, which is very similar to this, is simple split in the automation. Have they purchased with you before? Are they a first time purchaser? Are they coming back to make their
Ah.
second purchase, which now, right, getting that second purchase is huge? Or are they a repeat purchaser from you? Maybe you want a discount. Maybe you want to communicate with them differently. So, first time
Mhm.
purchaser or non purchaser, right? Maybe we're going to sweeten the deal to get them in the first time. Maybe we're going to put a minimum spend on a discount, right? Maybe we're going to incentivize in the first message versus the third or fourth message. First, like, you're one time coming back for the second time, we want to get them back, but we know they like us, right? So we don't need to necessarily incentivize them to the moon because they've shopped with us before, right? There's something there that's coming back. So
Yeah.
maybe we're going to focus on sense of urgency, or we're going to, again, maybe we'll recognize that their average order value or whatever the first time, and we'll give them another incentive, but we're going to jack the minimum spend this time, knowing on their loyal customer, whatever. Maybe I don't discount them at all, but maybe I'm like, hey, thanks for being a loyal customer, blah, blah. Don't forget, we want you to get it before anyone else does, right? You use that sense of urgency a little bit more, but we don't discount them. You could swap these incentive strategies, but have they
Mhm.
purchased, right? That matters. And then you can combine these things if you really want to get sophisticated and get all crazy and stuff. But I mean, two simple tweaks, right? It's one simple split, yes, no, value, but the way you communicate with that customer is so impactful and meaningful that it just makes that experience better. You know,
Yeah, that's a very interesting, and I think those are very good tweaks. Do you have any references in terms of like an e-commerce? You know that they are very top notch in terms of email marketing and SMS marketing for card recovery email or I know it wasn't in the question I sent you before, but do you have a
you
go
know,
to in term like do you have someone or
I,
some brands?
so I get asked this question all the time. You would think I would
Yeah,
have a prepared.
inspiration.
You would think I would have a prepared answer for this, and it's always one of those things like I should probably have a prepared answer for this, and I
Yeah.
don't have a prepared answer for it. I think what this like, there's certain retailers I could probably think of that do things certain ways that I really like out of them, um, but like Black Halo, right? You look at them; it's a women's clothing company, right? You SMS, MMS messages, they do a really nice job from that standpoint. Their emails are really pretty. Uh, you know,
I'm taking notes.
they
Black Halo,
have
right?
they have cart abandonment that does well, right? Canadian company, so Inklock Canada, right? Cosmetics company worldwide. They're a Canadian outfitter. So they use Omnisend, but they use SMS. They use push notifications on abandoned carts specifically. Uh, their emails, right? They try to use data. They do a lot of good things or a lot of things really well as well. I think the one thing we see lacking across the industry as a whole is for the fact that I can't say they do it well. I think that's one of the things is that no one really has a complete system and no one has everything perfect. It's kind of the
Mhm.
beauty of it though, right? So like people will say, well, Amazon's great at it. Well, Amazon's emails, I don't know. I don't think they're all that great, to be honest with you. They
I
they
don't
kind of
find
try.
the emails personal. I
No,
receive
not at
that.
all.
I know it's an automation, and we don't have a personal relation with Amazon such as we can have with brands where we can learn the story about the brand and you know yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
S- s-
you look at a company like, let's see, try to think of one. Carrots, right? Equestrian apparel. Now that's kind of a niche thing, but it's like sophisticated. It's like nice looking equestrian apparel for horse riders, whatever. Uh, you
Yep.
look at them. They do some browse abandonment messages at certain products. The messages are nice, right? They use sense of urgency in there. They do a lot of nice things as well. So I think that for the fact that you don't have a lot of companies that are doing everything top to bottom, soup to nuts, this is great. I think one, it's good because it gives even a startup to say, I can do better than them, right? You look at the big, like you have so much opportunity to jump ahead of the big guys. Are you at Walmart? No. Will you ever be Walmart? Chances are you probably will not be. Can you do things better than Walmart? Hell yeah.
Yes.
Hell
Of
yeah.
course.
Right. So, I mean, these are things, this is the really cool thing about e-commerce in general. Like any e-commerce brand, as small as you are, you have so many opportunities to you more now than you ever have to do things better than the big guys. The big guys kind of follow these patterns, right? They get complacent. Complacent. They are used to a process. This is what they do. This is what they've always done. It becomes bland. Doesn't mean it's not driving revenue, but it becomes bland. It opens up blind spots to them. And you can look at those blind spots and go, all right, here's where I'm going to put some money. I'm going to do a little bit here and boom, I'm going to get ahead of them there. And then you can go over here and pivot that way, right? That's the awesome part of these things. A lot of them are the bigger companies are starting to adopt SMS, but they're still slow to the curve, right? You have these opportunities even there to jump ahead of people. So it's kind of the cool thing. So it's a really long answer. You know me. It's a long answer for a
Yeah.
short question.
but
So I
but we see
apologize for
that
that.
there's a lot of room
But
there's a lot of room for improvement in terms of SMS. I'm sure people that are listening right now, they can think of few things that they can improve in their email marketing strategy, or also SMS or push notification. I know also that push notification is not something that lots of people are using. We haven't talked about it yet. Do you think it's still a big thing? Is it increasing right now? What do you think about that?
So it is definitely increasing year over year. I talked about how cart abandonment was at one place and then went to a different place. Browse abandonment went from one place, different place. SMS, we talked about, it was at one place. Now it's at a different place. I think I would look at push notifications as it's that one place, right? It hasn't made that leap yet, but it's still newer. Like people are figuring out. So we have a couple clients that are, so Inglock Canada, which I talked about, right?
Yep.
They were testing it in different places, and some places they weren't having any success with it, right? But then they put it into their abandoned cart messages, and I think for every one that is acted on for abandoned cart, they're driving $48 per message, like earning per message on that. But they found the right place for it. They found it in the abandoned cart flow versus using it as a mass tool. I think companies are starting to figure out, okay, where does this work for us? Where's the best place to do it to improve the customer experience or the journey at this point? We're not there yet, but the companies that are using it are finding success with it. But the adoption is just not there. I think, we have this conversation 2 years from now. I think we're going to see it. I mean, it grew. I don't know the number offhand. I think it grew 1,800% from 2019 to 2020 in the amount of sends, right? Conversion rates, I
Wow.
believe, doubled again. It's in that year-end report. You can take a look at it. Beautiful chart format for you. But it's on the rise. It's
Yeah,
just
those are,
not.
those are
It's
pretty slick, by the way. If I'm gonna put down in the notes of the episode the link to the report, so people are gonna be able to read those. But yeah, that's awesome to see that it's still a big thing, and it's still an acquisition channel that will stay free. Like it's an opt-in channel actually,
yep.
and it's still free when you send some push. Of course, you have your monthly subscription, but if you send 2 push or 10 push a month, still gonna be the same price.
Yeah, so we're just not there yet with it, but I say that lovingly, right? It's still a good channel. I would still encourage brands to use it to figure out again where it works for you, whether it works for you. But
Yeah,
to think that you're going to hit every browser, like every person coming to your site, and like you got all these pop-ups coming up, and be like, oh, that's going to kill for me. I think it's going to be a situational thing, but the ones again that are using it situationally, they're crushing it with it.
yeah. That's cool to talk about that also. Um, would you like to add like something else on every subjects we've covered today? Are there things that you're aware of, some general advices or strategy, or just a mindset that you would like to transmit to our listeners?
So I think the biggest thing, I was talking with a customer of ours who we were talking offline about Vera Bradley, the name brand, and the guy actually introduced me to someone. They're like, "Oh, by the way, we use Omnisend," and I was like, "Oh, perfect! I didn't know, right?" Smaller company, startup, not a huge subscriber base to their email list. Haven't played with SMS, and I think it's really good. It's a really good conversation we had about like marketing strategies and things like this. But I think the one thing to really hammer home on, and this is a conversation I had with her, was like, don't be overwhelmed. Like, we talk about, you might look at cart abandonment and welcome messages and browse and, post purchase and lapse purchase. It can feel really overwhelming. It's like, well, I got to come up with 20 messages now. It's not,
Yeah.
right? One message at a time. Okay, I'm going to start with the cart abandonment. Let me get one cart abandonment message going. And then you do a welcome message, right? So it's one message at a time, execute it, let the revenue, let the metrics come on the backside, and then you can add to the workflow. You can add a different message. That's the important part of it. It's being able to understand that sophisticated automation can be really easy. We make it easy, but it can be easy. It is not. Uh, it is not only for enterprise level companies. It is for any company out there. Super important to know. Don't let people tell you otherwise. And then when you figure out what you want to do, just do one message. Implement one thing at a time. You'll be amazed.
Yep.
People that actually follow that method. I mean, this is true in life too, right? If you've got 50 things to do at Novatize, like you're not doing all 50 things at once. You're gonna get nowhere. You're gonna have 10% of 50 things done, and you'll be like, I need to hire someone. So, you do one thing at a time, you finish the task. Email and SMS is no different. You pick the one thing, you implement it, you let it go. Don't let it overwhelm you. People and companies and clients I've worked with in the past that have done that have seen their revenues just go up and up and up because you're letting the work you're letting things do the work for you on the back end. That's the one thing I would tell people from an advice standpoint. Don't get overwhelmed by it because it doesn't have to be. I know when I talk and I'm like, oh, you could do this, this, and this, and this, people are like, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm excited. That's why I'm doing it, right? But
Yeah, but
it's
that's very
really
interesting.
simplistic.
Yeah, that's a very good advice. So just start with making sure that your first funnel have one email, and then your other funnel will have another one email, and you build, like, it's like building a house. You need to have some good foundations, and then you build on top of that one brick at a time. And I think that's a very good starting point, just to make sure that you have at least one email for every type of email you can send, and after that you can add some other emails and other sequences. So that's a good thing, because a guy like me manage like an e-commerce strategy with a very big ADHD. You can start to be mixed and touching to everything at the same time, but not doing necessarily something to move forward. So
Yeah.
doing some small steps, of course, is going to be very good. It was very interesting for this podcast. But before ending, I would like to ask you, how do you stay up to date like this? Yeah, of course you're reading your quarterly reports, but what's your source of information? Where do you feed yourself in terms of knowledge?
Writing the quarterly reports helps, right? So, and sifting through the data, that doesn't
Yeah.
hurt. There's a variety of places I get it from. I've got this kind of old school method, but I've got an RSS feed. I use Feedly, where I subscribe to a bunch of different e-commerce websites, right? So like Total Retail, Multi-Channel Merchant, uh, Modern Retail, and I just kind of scan the news every day, try to figure out stories that interest me. But a lot of times you can just kind of figure out like where trends are going from there. Um, you know, Podcasts are always a good thing. I read when I can. I kind of go through these spurts. I'll read like 3 books in a short matter of time, and then I'll go 6 months without reading. Right now, I'm in that 6 month phase. I just finished a couple books. I'm like, all right, I'll do something else. So bouncing around, I'll tell you what, the place I get the most value from. So I started doing these, like you talk to other people in your industry or other companies that maybe are outside of your industry, but still, like if you're an e-commerce business, right, and you're selling skincare or something, If you have friends in that same line of business, great. If you have friends who are selling toys, talk to them. Like there's so much overlap. I started putting together these quarterly meetings with other marketing people I know. So they could be VPs of marketing, content marketers, some are consultants, and we're all in a different line of business. Some are B2B, some are B2C, some are
Hmm,
consulting across. And we just get on and we just talk about trends we're seeing, right? Our white
that's
papers,
very interesting.
our white papers, like more effective, less effective? How are paid search doing for you? What are you doing from a blog perspective, right? How's traffic going? Like we look at all these things and we just have this open conversation about what we're seeing across. You get the most value and the insight out of just talking to other people. So use LinkedIn to your benefit. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, right? That's where you're going to get it from because you're getting practitioners, but you're getting sometimes you're too far in the forest to see the trees. You talk to other people, different mindset, different
Yeah,
business, different consumer base, what even if the same consumer base, right? But there's it's a great thing about e-commerce. I was having this conversation the other day. People love to help other people in this business.
that's
It's
true.
you don't always get that. Like you go to an accountant, it might be cutthroat. It's like, nah, I want that client or whatever. So talk to other people. It's the best place, best advice I can give to you.
Yeah, and for people that don't know, we do have a Facebook group, a French Facebook group. But if you speak French, you can go on Communauté e-commerce Québec, and on that group we have 4,000 members by now. And even if you speak English, there's a translation feature in Facebook that will allow you to understand. And that's what we're trying to create and have some exchanges with members from the group. But that's very cool. And just finishing on that note, what's your favorite e-commerce podcast? Not
Oh,
the commerce show, of course. It's a new one. But what's your favorite one?
well, I've listened to 100% of your shows so far, so that's good.
Oh yeah, thank you so much for that.
I like how we keep this at percentages, right?
Yep.
This thing could air next year. You'd be like, all right, great. So there's a couple.
Yeah.
There's a couple. I'm subscribed to probably 15 e-commerce podcasts. There's a couple that I listen to more often than not. Story of a Brand with Ramon Vela, pretty good one, right? What I like about his is he interviews these brands, kind of talk about growth stories, lessons learned, mistakes made, but the companies they're not enterprise level, right? A lot of them are just startups, so you get that kind
Mm,
of niche down advice. You get a real raw perspective from people. That's a good one. I like Omni Talk with they do a Fast Five thing, but they're shorter podcasts. Chris Walton's
yep.
one of the hosts over there. Really good one, entertaining. I like the humor too. Ecom Crew, which is a little more Amazon focused, but Mike Jackness, really
Yep.
nice guy over there, but pretty good podcast. And then the last one, which I bounce in and out of, Jason and Scott show. So they break down like earnings reports. They talk about trends. Scott's a big car guy, so he writes for Forbes on like the future of car, like e-commerce of cars and stuff. So really good perspectives over there. So those are probably the four I listen to more often than not. There's some others that I listen to probably like the middle group, but they're kind of there.
That's very interesting, and I'm gonna let the links to the podcast just after the show. I'm gonna let them directly into the description. So if people want to subscribe to those also and just grasp information from there, it's gonna be easy for everyone. Greg, thank you so much for being with us today. It was an honest pleasure, and talk to you next year for sure for another episode.
Sounds good. Thanks so much for having me. I hope your listeners got what they were hoping to get out of it. As always, I don't know if you're putting my email or whatever in the show notes or LinkedIn, but I'm an open book. Feel free to connect with me. I know I'm still talking to people from the conference I was at, for the Journey e-commerce conference. We still bounce back and forth with different people there. So feel free to reach out if I can help you in any way.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Greg.
All
Bye
right.
bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.